right, I have 6:30. Julie, can you call the roll, please?
Certainly. Kara Caston. Here. Ken Dawson.
Here.
Christopher Espinoza.
Here.
Cheryl Fuller. Here. Terry Pavicic.
Here.
Don Renner.
Here.
And Gianna Hunchy. Here. Thank you.
All right, having a quorum, can we please stand for a pledge of allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Hank, it's my pleasure to turn it over to you for item number 3 in recognition of the state championship cross-country boys team.
All right, good evening, board and honored guests. It's interesting to be where we are right now, to be able to congratulate our first place boys cross-country team from North High. And it is interesting in the fact that one of the goals this year for the board and for the administration is to get better at recognizing people and to formalize some of our processes. You guys decided to win the state championship before we had that process figured out. So, not one to wait. We're trying to figure out the process as we drive, but one of the things that we definitely wanted to do as we recognized our students was to give our villages the opportunity to recognize our students as well. So I have a proclamation to read from the village of Woodridge and one from the village of Downers Grove. And then I'm going to invite our coaches to come forward and talk about the season a little bit, and then our students to come forward and talk about the season a little bit. So the first proclamation is from the village of Woodridge. And it says, "To whom these present shall come, greeting proclamation. On Saturday, November 4th, the Downers Grove North Boys Cross Country Team won the 2023 IHSA Boys 3A State Championship in Peoria, Illinois. And the boys cross country team was led to victory by student athletes Ryan Eddington, Grant Schroeder, Philip Kupiel, Caden Weber, Will Surratt, Zach Bender, and Isaac Moss. And the Downers Grove North Boys State Championship would not have been possible without the exceptional leadership of head coach John Sipple and assistant coaches Andrew Edelman, Eric Buhat, Alexa Harris, Jillian Russell, Josh Williams, Ethan Wood, and Robbie Prescott. And the achievements of Downers Grove North's student athletes highlight the commitment, spirit, and pride of the Woodridge community and should be recognized. And we thank the runners, coaches, students, administrators, parents, and all others involved with the program for representing this region so well, making Downers Grove North High School proud, and for bringing the communities surrounding Downers Grove North High School together during this exciting cross-country season. Now, therefore, I, Gina Cunningham, Mayor of the Village of Woodridge, DuPage, Will, and Cook County, Illinois, by virtue of my office, do hereby congratulate the Downers Grove North High School Boys Cross Country Team on winning the 2023 IHSA Boys 3A State Championship and on their tremendous achievements this year, and proclaim Monday, December 18th, 2023 as the Downers Grove North's High School Boys Cross Country Team Day in the village of Woodridge.
All right.
In the village of Woodridge, and urge all citizens of Woodridge to gratefully recognize the outstanding achievements. So this is signed from Woodridge. I'll present that to the coaches here in a second. And then we have another proclamation. This is from the village of Downers Grove. Whereas on Saturday, November 4th, 2023, the Downers Grove North High Boys Cross Country Team won the IHSA Class 3 State Championship in Peoria, and the team ranked number 1 the entire season, tallied 79 points in the championship, beating their nearest competitor by 46 points. And the Downers Grove North Boys Cross Country Team consists of student athletes Ryan Eddington, Grant Schroeder, Philip Kupiel, Caden Weber, Will Surratt, Zach Bender, and Isaac Moses. And whereas Philip Kupiel and Grant Schroeder placed in the top 10 finishers, and all 7 team members placed in the top 50 finishers of the 236 runners. And head coach John Sipple and assistant coaches Andrew Edelman, Eric Buhat, Alexis Harris, Jillian Russell, Josh Williams, Ethan Wood, and Robbie Prescott were integral in guiding the team to victory through their unwavering support and guidance. And the hard work, dedication, sportsmanship, talent, and team chemistry of the 2023 Downers Grove North Boys Cross Country team serves as an exemplary representation of Downers Grove to the sport of cross country and to the state of Illinois, bringing pride and recognition to our community. Now, therefore, I, Robert T. Barnett, Mayor of the Village of Downers Grove, do hereby congratulate the Downers Grove North High Boys Cross Country team and proclaim the week of December 18th, 2020.
Hey!
Downers Grove, try an outdoor. So the whole week is proclaimed as Downers Grove North Boys Cross Country Week in the Village of Downers Grove. Congratulations. I couldn't say it better than our Thanks. You want to say a couple words about the season and invite your boys forward?
Sure. Now these guys know you give me a mic. Here we go. Just joking. All right. No, I do just want to thank these guys and the whole team for all their efforts and everything that they put forth into the season and over the years. Things don't happen overnight or by accident like this. It takes a lot of hard work, a lot of perseverance, a lot of dedication, and it speaks to what these guys have been doing for years, and for some of these guys it's been 4 years to get to this point, and just so incredibly proud of the efforts and everything that they've put forward. So very thankful for our coaching staff, and for them helping support us in this effort and everything, and the parents and everything that they bring for these guys, and the support that they've had for the program and the team and everything. And thank you to the school district as well, and North High. It's been it's exceptional, and and I feel like I need to say it is it's a very special season, and they're also unique, and we're so very fortunate that we ended it in this way, because it's incredibly hard what they do, and thank you for recognizing them and bringing them up here. Really appreciate everything. Thank you.
Hey, don't leave yet. Don't leave yet. I need you to introduce your runners.
All right. Without further ado, well, let's start off with our seniors here. Zach Bender. Michael Moss. Wayne Weber. Junior here, Grant Schroeder. Sophomore Will Surratt.
All right.
Do we keep going?
Yeah.
Coach, we got some questions for you, I'm sure. If you want to stay at the mic, that'd be great.
You're not off the hook yet.
So why don't you tell us about where some of these seniors are actually going to be running in college?
Oh, very good. We have Ryan Knighton here who's going to go to Missouri, University of Missouri, in Columbia there. And Caden Weber is going to be running at Kentucky, University of Kentucky. Wow. And then we have two still undecided spots left with Zach Bender and Isaac Moss.
So you're going to
So
be.
if there are people watching, they are still be able to be recruited.
Are you going to be making your way down to some of those SEC track meets and cross country meets?
That would be pretty exciting. I'd love to do that. Absolutely. Yeah.
That's awesome.
All right, we're going to bring some students up to tell us the highlights of the season. But before we do that, late breaking news. I have just learned that Coach Sipple has been voted as the ITCCCA Illinois Track and Cross Country Coaches Association Coach of the Year in Class 3 Boys Cross Country.
as we talk about, like, we don't really, you know, we don't run any of the races. These guys do all the work. So that stuff doesn't happen. It only happens because of this stuff, you know. So I'm like, these guys make it happen. So.
Can we have a couple of athletes just kind of come forward and tell us highlights of the season, what your big takeaways are, so the board gets a feel for what you guys did this year?
Sweet. All right, I'm off.
Now you're off. Now, Coach.
Do I gotta talk into this?
Yeah. Yes.
It's kind of crazy how, I mean, we saw my sophomore year we got third, junior year we got third, and then this year, like, we were able to put it together. So that was pretty awesome. But for me, the highlights were just like just being able to go out of school every day and go on an easy run with these guys and just like laugh for 40 minutes straight. So that was my highlight. And going to Portland again. So.
And for the board members that aren't aware, it's Nationals in Portland that they went to.
All right.
Anybody else want to share anything? All right, come on up.
All right.
It's not every day you're state champ.
Yeah, I'd definitely say the highlights are just hanging out with these guys and hanging out with like the coaches. Like they create such a just like inviting and fun environment. Like we really don't like, I don't know, I guess focus on like our goals. Like they just kind of just happen because we love running. Like the man who loves walking will walk farther than the guy who loves the destination. And I don't know, I like that quote. It kind of sums up our season, so that's all I gotta say.
Awesome.
Excellent.
I don't know how I'm going to follow up a quote like that. No, I just think that the highlight of the season was really kind of like what Ryan said, running with the guys at like every single day. I mean, just not even like this year, but I mean, every single year, the guys before us made a great environment for us. And like our biggest goal is to keep that like inviting environment going to the people around us and like to everybody around us, not just the cross country team. I mean, I think the cross country team is truly something unique, and I wish that like everybody could experience something like that. Just the inviting environment, and I mean, you go through everything with the entire group, so it's like you form a special kind of friendship with them just going through everything like that. So it's just something that I hope everybody can experience.
Yeah, I think I just want to piggyback off Bender's idea about like the seniors, like my sophomore year, seniors that were there made like a really good environment for me and like taught me how to be like a better leader. And I think it's like cool. Like this year, I was able to turn around and like use that leadership skills in people younger than me. And I think that was a big highlight, and also hang out with these guys. I mean, these guys could be my friends for life, so it's just cool to see like the bonds we create and just how close we get throughout the season. And I think another thing when Kay was saying, like, we really pay attention to like how good we're doing, like the goals just kind of come with it, and like just about the whole work and just the coaching staff that we have just makes us stick to like be accountable and just like stick to what we do each and every day. So that's all I got to say.
Alright, well, I guess I'll just say some of my highlights of the season. I don't know, just like, I kind of think about every day as like, just focus on the present, not really the future. So when it comes to my goals and stuff, like on the state line, I wasn't really like thinking about all the work I've done. I just think about all like the present, and I just run my race. So, what else? Really fun times with this group. The cool downs. If you don't know what a cool down is, after the race we go on this run. It's just super exciting. It's just like that's what I feed off of for my races. So, thanks.
I would just say my favorite part, like just with this team and everything, is just like in school, like just like getting to look forward to going to practice after each day, and then just like being able to push myself with all these guys, and just like everything about the sport. And Yeah.
All right. We got at least one more.
7 for 7.
Yeah, let's go 7 for 7.
Okay, this year was kind of a big year for me. I haven't always been like the best guy or the most committed guy, but this year I kind of turned it around, and I was able to kind of experience for the first time like what the team included. I would always kind of practice early sometimes and or skip once in a while, but on family bike rides. But this year I've kind of just been able to see being with these guys, the friendship, the laughs, just man, I'm not a public speaker. Wow. But it's just been a great ride this year. So
Well, on behalf of the entire district, I'll let Mr. Renner speak on behalf of the board here in a second. I just want to tell you that everywhere it showed well in a lot of different ways. So thanks for all you've done as a team this year.
On behalf of the board, I'd like to echo those sentiments. Obviously, I was out and saw you guys compete quite a bit. Obviously, watching my own daughter on the girls' team, didn't always get the opportunity to be at the same events that you were at, but got to be in Portland with all of you and watch you compete on the national level, and I think you guys should be super proud of your performance. The quality of those teams that were out there and the fact that you were still able to compete and finish 7th overall was fantastic. The conditions that day were rough, and you fought through it, and it's an experience I think you guys will always remember for the rest of your lifetime. And the camaraderie that you guys spoke about here tonight is something that I think will be a lasting memory that you'll cherish for the rest of your lifetime. So we're all very, very proud of you and wish you all the best as you go forward. And hopefully we'll see you again here next year.
All right, athletes and parents, I know how much you're looking forward to staying for the whole board meeting, but you're not required to. If the athletes and coaches would step out so that Mrs. Browning could grab a picture of all of you this evening, that would be great. And then I'm sure there's studying to be done. So you're welcome to stick around if you'd like to, but you're also welcome to go.
thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, thank you. Congratulations. Thank you. Yeah. And they all brought one car.
We got some pictures.
You know, I mean, they each.
Yeah, we had them in there.
Yeah.
All right. All right, minutes.
Okay. I need a motion for the Board of Education to approve the minutes of the November 20th, 2023 business meeting, the December 4th, 2023 workshop meeting with action item, and the December 4th, 2023 closed meeting.
So moved.
Terry and Chris?
Terry and Chris?
Thank you very much. Terry Pavasich.
Aye.
Chris Espinoza.
Aye.
Cheryl Fuller. Aye. Smitty Hagstrom. Aye. Tara Caston.
Aye.
Ken Dawson.
Aye.
And Don Renner.
Aye. Motion carries.
We have no slips for reception of visits.
Over to you, Hank, for items number 6.
All right, this evening we have some of our administrators here, Kelly Zerner and Dr. Karen Taylor, here to present on chronic absenteeism. I think Scott has some parts of this as well. Who would you like for me to give the clicker to? Gina. Gina's also involved.
Gina's driving.
Gina's driving. All right.
So thank you.
So tonight, we are going to report, as Dr. Thielen said, on chronic absenteeism, which is one component in the school. So this was some of the school report card presentation that we've been doing the last 2 meetings. So tonight, we're going to talk about chronic absenteeism. We'll define it and talk a little bit about what that means. We will also share some information about our data dashboards, as well as interventions and what we're doing to work on chronic absenteeism. So, again, I know we've defined chronic absenteeism before, but as we talk about it, we want to think about the difference between truancy and chronic absence. So truancy, and the definition is important for the state, but also for our understanding as well. So chronic absenteeism includes all absences, regardless of whether it's excused or unexcused, and even if it's a suspension, and an in-school suspension too. The only time that an absence wouldn't count if it was like a long-term situation where we were providing educational services, but those are rare circumstances, whereas truancy is taking into consideration unexcused absences. So as we think about how the state of Illinois defines chronic absenteeism, the state defines it as a student who misses 10% or more of the school days in a year with or without cause. So even if the student goes to the doctor, the parent calls the student in, those mental health days, you may recall hearing about the state has allowed students to take mental health days. Those all count. What would also count is if a student is unexcused. So it's 10% of the year, which is basically roughly 17 and a half days, 17.6 days. And partial days count. So it accumulates. It's not like it has to be 17 full days or 18 full days, but rather it can be parts of a day that come together to total a day. So a chronically absent student is a student who's missed 10% or more of a school year with or without cause. It also could mean a student who isn't with us for the entire school year. For example, let's say the student is only with us for 150 days, then it would be 15 days. So you may recall from, I believe, the first school report card presentation that I shared with you the schoolhouse picture that is new this year to the report card. And this is an example from North High School, and you can see that chronic absenteeism accounts for 10% of our rating, of our summative designation. Remember, we talked about some of the other areas like ELA proficiency and graduation rates and science and so forth. Chronic absenteeism counts for 10%. And you can see here that out of 10%, our North High School rating was 4.96, and our South was 3.62. And again, I share that so you can see how it fits in with the larger summative designation. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Scott.
All right, thank you. So as you recall from our last time Gina was presenting, or I talked about the 5 labs, went through the CSSS, the PATH, and our activities dashboard, and I kind of gave you a little teaser that we'd be sharing a little bit about attendance during this time. So we have our attendance dashboard, and just as a reminder on that, that's something that we created the dashboards to go right to our staff to use to generate lists of students. We have counts. We could just keep a good close eye and monitor, on our progress and where we're at. So again, the dashboard, if you recall from the last time, I used the words like a threshold. So any threshold that we have on there is really filtering in the data. So for example, on the attendance dashboard, it's looking at students that are chronically absent and are failing 1 or more classes. So we call that a threshold because it's combining those 2 pieces together and then generating a list of students. And then that's where our team, with being led by Karen and Kelly, go into and work with our staff to just do, the intervention and the work to try to, improve, obviously, that. And if you recall, our dashboards also are set up that you can filter by different things, so we can look at, say we could pick 9th grade look at our 9th grade students that are chronically absent and failing one or more classes. So we have a lot of features in those dashboards that are really easy to use and give us student lists and data. And then from an equity lens, we can look at obviously race, low income, special ed, you name it. We have it in there for the data to be able to sort through and look at that. So that's kind of the attendance dashboard. Our deans are heavily using that along with Karen and Kelly. And then I think the next slide is our chronic absenteeism. It's the 5-year outlook going back to 2019. I believe you've seen this before, but you can see from last year where we were at, and then obviously we've talked about, the chronic absenteeism rate is obviously going up, but I think what I'm proud of is that, we're looking at those numbers, but more importantly, we're actually intervening with students, and Karen and Kelly will describe the work that the team's doing with that. So I'm proud of the different things, and even since literally like last year, and though I don't want to steal their information, but just looking at numbers, reacting to it, and creating those interventions. So I'm proud of the team for that. So, and then the next slide gives just the comparison to DuPage County schools. I think it just puts it in perspective of how District 99 is faring with looking at chronic absenteeism, which obviously District 99 is in the blue bars. The orange is the DuPage County average. And then the red is the state average. If you look to the far right is the 5-year average, so that does, give us a trend of we're a little lower than obviously the state and the DuPage County school. But again, the numbers, they tell you where you're at, but it's really the work that, we're doing to intervene and try to affect that, ultimately that number, but really support our students.
So we really wanted to kind of shift our focus to what are we doing? How are we intervening? How are we identifying students who need us? And we wanted to start first by how students are brought to our attention for support. And I'm going to rest heavily on the fact that this year more than ever, I've really truly seen a team effort with our teachers, with our CSSS, our counselors, our social workers, our deans, all working together to try to support our students. So some of the things that we do to identify students who are having an increase in their attendance is our teachers, like notifying us. They can do it through multiple ways. Sometimes it's an email to the dean, sometimes it's an alpha referral, sometimes it's sending out a dean's referral. The deans also send every single Monday morning, they get the previous week's attendance. And it's all of their students on their caseload that have had an absence so that they can comb through to see who has an unexcused absence. So each dean has approximately 700 students on their caseload. They will pull all of the unexcused absences from the week prior. We also have support in our attendance office, which is something that we implemented to help, where we pull all of their tardies as well. If a student is tardy to class, they're missing out on some of their instructional time. So we have someone in our attendance office who pulls that data so that we can intervene early and often. We do use the 5 labs. I mean, that is a wonderful tool that just helps to identify and make sure that there's no student who's left not receiving our support. So that's generally how they get identified. And then we broke them into 3 different tiers, which we're going to go into depth on what we do on those individual tiers. But just kind of for frame of reference, if you're looking at a tier 1, you're looking at students who are less than 10% absent of their school days. 10 to 19% is tier 2, and anything over 20% would be your highest level. That's a tier 3. And then once we identify, we're doing a lot of monitoring. Just kind of piggybacking on Scott and what the work that we've done, recognizing that it's something that is of utmost concern. So we are addressing our students who need us. Our deans last year at the end took a report of all of their caseload and identified their top 20% of any student who was absent. And they made it kind of a mission at the beginning of this year to just reach out proactively and check in on each individual student at both North and South, which was great. It's something that, they had never done prior, and we're trying to implement different kinds of resources and interventions so that students feel supported.
So Dr. Zerner was talking about the different tiers, and this model shows us a little more in depth how the tiers work. So it's based off of the multi-tiered systems of support. That's a common model we use when intervening with students out of our counseling and student support services world. So the tier 1 level really should be meeting the needs of 80 to 85% of our students. And so the focus there is on things that really are building a school climate and culture of belonging, and making sure that everyone understands the impact of their attendance on their learning and on the school culture, and that we're focused really on identifying and recognizing students who have good and improved attendance so that it's what's promoted as the norm in our school culture, right? And then the tier 2 level intervention, again, that's students who have been absent between 10 and 19% of the possible student attendance days for any reason at all, right? Excused or unexcused. So in the first 2 weeks of school, first 10 days of school, a student who's been absent one day is considered chronically absent at that point in time. They may only miss that day, so by the end of the year, they will no longer be chronically absent. But so it's important to recognize that that's an organic number we're dealing with kind of fluidly throughout the year. And so the tier 2 level, though, our outreach and our interventions become more personalized. That really should be meeting the needs of about 15% of our students. And the goal there is to really re-engage them with a lot of connection and mentoring so that we can bring them back under that 10%. And when students reach that top third tier, our interventions become really, truly individualized. Those are students who may need interventions via outside agencies or alternative education. They may need home visits. They may need family level interventions, things like that.
So tier 1, so that's the one that we're hoping to catch most of our students at the tier 1 level so that we don't get to a tier 2 or 3. But we're looking at, this is just some of the interventions that we have in place, and really this is where I think our teachers are pivotal in all of the support that they've given us this year with helping to contact families to demonstrate impact to their academics when they're missing out of school.
One other thing our teachers are doing, and I want to give a little shout out to our security teams as well, is they're in the moment emailing the security team, so-and-so is missing from my class. If you see her in the hallways or in the commons, make sure she gets back to class. Bring her back. And so it's really impressive, and they're looking for them. And so I really appreciate teachers reaching out, security looking for kids, getting them back. It's a team approach.
We also have the robocalls that just inform the families twice a day if a student is missing one of their periods that we haven't had a call in yet from a parent or guardian. So that will call out around 11:30, and then the last one calls out around 5 p.m. As it cycles through, and that just identifies what periods the students were absent or hadn't been called in yet for. PBIS is really pushed in to trying to support good, positive behavior. Of course, we have our traditional dean interventions when a student is missing an unexcused absence, receiving that consequence and being responsible for that, as well as those tardies, because I think that it is very impactful to the education that they're receiving. I mentioned the deans printing out that attendance report. The alpha teams have an early warning system that comes through that flags, is something that Scott had previously mentioned, and we've done a lot of professional development so that we can work together, and it's a collaboration from all stakeholders.
And tier 2, again, is where we get a little more targeted with our interventions, trying to build connections to get students reinvested in the school. Scott and Kelly and I and some of our friends in the CSSS team attended trainings throughout the fall that were put on by the Regional Office of Education. And one of those introduced us to the idea of the Attendance Improvement Mentoring Group. So we've had staff members at both schools attend a training that was offered here in District 58, and then we partnered with them and sent folks there, and it was free, and it's a really great curriculum that we're ready to roll out at both schools at the start of second semester. So we've been identifying students and looking for incentives to make sure that the students are invested in wanting to go, because that's where they will not only connect with adult staff members who will hopefully build those connections, but also other peers who might help to hold them accountable for making good decisions about coming to school every day, or might just be the like, you know, it's easier for me to get to the gym when I know someone, I have a buddy there and they're expecting to see me that day, kind of thing in class as well. The nudge letters are letters that are sent to families when a student has reached or exceeded 10% or more of the possible student attendance days that they have been absent. And sometimes it's just important to call the family's attention to the fact that you may not realize this, but your child went on 2 college visits and they had this doctor's appointment that took them out this day and this other reason, and then they were sick with the flu for 3 days. All of that together has meant that they've been gone for more than 10% of the possible school days. We really would like to see them in school. Here are the reasons and the benefits of being in school. And then certainly at the tier 2 level is where our alpha teams are meeting weekly and talking about what might we do to reinvest this student in coming to school and attending all their classes on a regular basis. And that may mean bringing the family in for a meeting. And it could be all members of the alpha team meeting with them. It might just be the counselor, might just be the dean, whatever makes sense for that student.
I just want to say on the AIM group that Karen mentioned, our staff volunteered. Like, that is an important piece. I mean, our staff is taking a vested interest in this, and they volunteered to lead these groups. It wasn't something that we had mandated. We gave them the professional development. We were looking into all options so that we can support good, positive attendance, and our staff has volunteered themselves to have these support groups.
Really quick, is it 17 days is the threshold, and they don't, like 16 days, they don't care? And, I mean, like, you know, like, not they don't care, but that they're not measuring
Doesn't trigger the metric.
until it gets to 17.
Probably a kid who has 16 days absence at the end of the year at some point during the school year tripped into the tier 2, because it's that fluid number we talked about, right? And unless it happened on the very last day of school, that would be very unusual. But yeah.
The state also looks at chronic truancy, which is unexcused absences. However, it doesn't impact the summative designation.
Okay.
It does appear on the report card, so you can actually see it, but it doesn't impact the rating.
And are there times where they're capturing this data, like
So,
October 1st, March 1st, or is it just?
so there's various uploads that we have to do to the state throughout the year, with the final upload being in the summer.
Okay.
And it's the final one that
It's
counts
the
for
final, yes.
the
Because
school
you might,
report card.
we might be going back and finding, oh, there's a mistake here, or oh, this needs to be corrected. That can occur throughout the year, but ultimately, there's a drop dead date and it all has to be.
So we can help ourselves.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Like,
Okay.
even though the state may not be flagging that, we are. And so per semester, generally speaking, it's 6 excused. Anything beyond that, we're addressing that.
Right.
That's okay. No problem, because it's actually a really good segue as we talk about truancy versus chronic absenteeism to this Tier 3 interventions. So the DuPage Regional Office of Education, really, they've been great partners for us on all things attendance, and increasingly so. This year I was talking with Kelly about this recently, we've seen even greater investment in our schools. I think they've really recognized that chronic absenteeism is a problem not just in District 99, but countywide, and they've really put some energy into building out programming to support districts and being more responsive when we're calling them in the event of a Tier 3 truancy intervention. So we're getting a quicker response. The team, they're called behavior interventionists. They don't call them truancy officers anymore, but the behavior interventionists went through the same trainings that we went through at the ROE this fall. And so anyway, so that's a really individualized case, because again, these are the students that it should be only at max 5% of our population. And these are the students that have missed 20% or more of the possible student attendance days. So we need to get really individualized here, and we need to be really responsive to the unique circumstances that each kid has. And so that requires a lot of outreach on our part. That's when we're doing home visits. That's when we might be considering alternative learning environments. Perhaps the length of the day in our schedule isn't working for them. Perhaps there's another barrier that might be better addressed in a different setting. And so individualized plans, and certainly the involvement of community agencies, perhaps family support, perhaps, drug and alcohol intervention is something that's needed. It really is individualized student response here. And we've certainly learned that it really does take all of us. I think we're seeing positive results because we are all leaning in. The teachers, our support staff, our security team, our administrators, our parents, we're doing better about educating them, and we're getting folks to lean in, because this is really not something that can be addressed in a vacuum. When you hear so often that it takes a village, right? Attendance really does take a village, because there are so many different barriers that get in the way.
And just speaking of all the stakeholders, and I'm just going to highlight a few that we've said that some people have volunteered for AIM, but like when Karen and I are speaking on that, we're talking about, looking at groups to create, and our social workers want to create a group that have students who have been hospitalized and they hit the tier 3. And because that's a different set of students with a different set of needs, and the deans are creating their groups, and we're looking at that impact academically for our students as well. It truly has become a focus for all of us to kind of take ownership of, so that we can support our students better.
Before we get into questions, I want to recognize a mistake I made at the beginning. I left the doctor off
it's
of,
okay.
of Kelly's title, and that was an error on my part. She's recently minted, I guess, doctor. So
Yes, very true. Thank you.
I left that off of the introduction, wanted the opportunity to correct that.
Thank you.
All right, so questions from board members?
At each high school, on an average day, how many students are absent? Would you say? Or Arwen and Courtney, what would you say?
I would be guessing at this
guess.
point.
We can pull it, though, and
Yeah.
give you, we can
No,
pull
just
that.
ballpark.
I mean, I
ballpark.
would, so our average day, well, actually, it wouldn't be a guess, because we generally know our average daily attendance. So this is a whole different thing we haven't even talked about, and it's kind of complicated to understand. But average daily attendance is a separate figure that gets reported to the state, and that's, it looks incongruent when we talk about chronic absenteeism, because average daily attendance will tell you that approximately the mid-90s, I don't know where we sit exactly today, somewhere between 93 and 95% of our students are present in our buildings every day.
So
the
that's
converse
what,
would be
under
5
50?
to 7%.
Under
would be-
50 students, under 100 students
So you're,
are absent a day?
yeah, depending on each campus, that
I
looks
guess
a
the
little
raw
bit.
number, 5 to 7% of whatever our total student body is.
And we hover right in that 93 to 95% of daily attendance.
Mm-hmm.
But as Dr. Taylor was mentioning, somebody could be in the daily attendance counted, but also count when they're absent as chronically absent. So like,
Yeah,
that's why it gets a little bit confusing. But each day we have, absolutely strong attendance rates showing up, but we do have those kids that need our support.
'Cause my point is, with Tier 1 interventions, we have robocalls twice a daily, automated phone message. Is there any possibility that could be transitioned to live phone calls, or is that unrealistic with, the manpower in the offices or what? But I just know if I was a student
So, yeah.
and I knew a robocall was coming to my house, it would not deter me from, not coming to school. But if I knew somebody had to pick up a phone and talk to a person, or that person is leaving a message, it gets a little more complicated, and it may be just the nudge they need to get to school.
The daily influx of phone calls and attendance reporting is quite profound, and that's why there's 2 calls that go out, because sometimes we're still recording the attendance, and the teachers are still updating their attendance by the time the evening hits.
Got it.
And so sometimes you'll have, just excuse my daughter's who is senior at North, Megan I might get a robocall at, 11 o'clock that says Megan missed period 4, but she actually was coming in late to period 4 because she's with the counselor.
Got it.
And it pulled. So we really rely heavy on that second pull. But the influx is so severe that we're trying to accurately report that attendance, that the live call won't happen until the dean steps in to interview.
Got it. Okay.
And then deans do live calls.
Got it. Okay.
The other reason for the midday robocall too is so that parents can be alerted midday
Yeah,
instead
oh,
of
yeah.
waiting till the
Without
very
a
end of
doubt.
the day.
I've been that person.
Or forget
To call in.
forget to call in, and
Yeah.
that's the
Yes.
reminder.
School's public comes up on the color.
Like, I was just calling in.
Yeah, so they do get through.
So, I think I know the answer to this, but I want to ask the question again anyways, just to frame some of the questions that I have to layer in on top of that. There is no correlation between chronic absenteeism and academic performance in the classroom?
Though the change now is there's a correlation between a student failing and them being chronic absent,
So
not
it's the other way around.
other way around.
It's the other way around. So chronic absenteeism is not a predictor of how well a student is going to do in the classroom.
No.
No.
It's the exact, just like Hank said, it's the exact opposite. If I have a student who is failing, they're most likely to also have truants or excessive absences.
Okay, so we shouldn't be looking at this as from a board perspective of, this is not necessarily an academic performance issue? Is that fair, or?
Well,
For
it is in-
some, and that's
mean,
the complexity.
So,
Remember, kids that are chronically absent that have gone on 2 college visits, they had a minor surgery, which meant physical therapy appointments took them out, or doctor, but they also knew about those things in advance, so they talked to their teachers, they worked to stay on top of their assignments. It's not impacting them academically. A chronically truant student,
yes.
that's
Yes.
probably correlated with their
Sure.
Yes.
academic performance.
So in
Is-
some instances, people are on your radar, but you're kind of like, well, we already knew that this was coming. Or
Right.
we are,
Yep.
we know that this student is gonna finish physical
Yep.
therapy on
Sure.
December 1st. and
Exactly right. Or they were in,
There, this is-
they had a concussion and that knocked them out for a full 5 days, and depending on when during the school year that happened, yeah.
It's so individualized for
Yeah.
that.
Is a student who's chronically absent, is that student a drain on resources for D99? Meaning, are teachers having to take on additional tasks outside of the classroom to make certain that those students are getting caught up?
That's going to depend, truly. Again, just as complex as this is because of the nature of an absence, some of the students that, like Karen was talking about, they're very proactive, and they say, I'm having this short-term surgery, like my daughter had. She'd hate that I'm saying this on
A short-term surgery. She had a short-term
Yeah, well-being surgery. But she was going to be out, so she had made, connections to her teachers to intervene and get ahead of it. Now, does that require more additional work as a teacher? Yes, like teachers work hard for each individual student always. But attendance is one factor that causes that. But then there's the students who are truant, and maybe they're missing, and now they need to make up tests and have to go down to the testing center, or they need additional support, so they're going to access the office hours, or they're going to access the tutoring center for additional help, or might be directed into directed study to get additional academic support. So it's really dependent upon the need of the individual students.
But it's key to recognize the work that our teachers have done
Oh, absolutely.
to flip that data metric, right? It used to be a strong correlation that a student that was chronically absent was going to be failing. And what our teachers have done through the variety of different supports and online resources and office hours and all of those things is our teachers have literally flipped that metric so it's no longer a predictor of a student failing. That is like huge success by our teaching staff and our entire administrative team and all the supports that are in place in District 99, that a kid that's out hospitalized isn't going to fail all their classes. You know, or a kid that has a significant issue at home, or there's, you know, all of these things that factor in why a student is out. It isn't all that, some of it is the students blowing off class, right? But there's a lot of factors that could lead, like, as Dr. Zerner just said, that lead into the specific reasons why a student might be out. And the fact that that is no longer a defining predictor of failure goes directly back to the work of our instruction, and, you know, our instructional experts in the classroom, you know.
I don't know. I'm concerned because I saw in the, one of your slides that it seems like in DuPage County and in our neighboring schools and us are just like right up there this last year. And so is that a trend that is happening around the country, or is it just
Honestly,
from
worldwide.
COVID?
That's a takeaway, honestly, and I hadn't really thought about the worldwide impact of chronic absenteeism, but yes, post-COVID. But the trainer who worked with us in the trainings I've mentioned at the regional office works with schools in Australia, the Netherlands, someplace else.
I think she was in Ireland and
Ireland,
Sweden.
yes. So all over, she's working with schools exclusively on chronic absenteeism. She, in every training I went to, identified she knows of one school that has not, or that has maintained like 5% or lower chronic absenteeism post-COVID. So,
Are they giving bonuses to the kids?
Sure. Attendance bonus, yeah.
No, I mean, looking at
and
this,
it's elementary
it's
schools,
really,
it's high schools, it's everybody.
yeah, it seems to be frightening how much it has jumped since COVID. And, are we also talking to parents? Because some of that is parental, letting them stay home, or whatever. And
That tier 2 and 3 piece where Karen was like highlighting family meetings, like we're calling entire families in with the alpha team, the counselor, the dean, their psychologists, all, like everybody's coming together saying, here's the impact and this is why we need our student here.
are they being receptive to that?
Yes.
Some.
Yeah,
Is it helping?
It does help.
Have we seen maybe the numbers going down from when you guys started, this intervention program?
Yeah, so I can, about a year ago at this time, I was really worried, I continue to be worried, but
Right.
I was really worried and did a lot of work at the tier 1 level that we continue to need to flesh out and build up even more. But Jill Browning and the communications team helped support our efforts with push-outs to parents, educating them on the importance of students being in school every day. There's a lot of research out there about even at 3rd grade, if they're absent this much, what the chances are they would graduate from high school on time, graduate at all, et cetera, graduate at, at or beyond grade level, those kinds of things. But so we definitely are working to educate families about that.
But there's a big factor we can't ignore here, that is, up until March of last year, the recommendation was that if you were homesick and you believed it was COVID, to stay home for 5 days, right? That puts you almost one third of the way
Right.
to being chronically absent, right? So that is a big variable that has been in there the last 2 years, that same expectation doesn't exist this year. So, we might still have higher levels of illness or those kinds of things, and people are responding to illness differently than they have in the past, but that was a huge, big blip. If a kid was sick a couple of times, they'd be pushing up against that number, so.
Now, is the people who put these numbers together, are they thinking about changing how some of these numbers are reported, because, I mean, if a student is sick, it's so much better for them to stay home than it is for them to come to school and be sick. So shouldn't we kind of, I guess, get points for that? You know what I'm saying.
Oh, there are
I-
definitely topics being discussed at the state. The fact that, during the last several years, as this was put into place, you had several different opportunities for students to stay home, such as mental health days. There's a variety of like public service days that were added, but those still factor into our metrics, right? So, and then with illness and everything else, the encouragement to stay home, but that doesn't, reflect in, either way, they're still out of school, right? So you can argue about what that threshold is so far as our rating, but you still get down to, it's better for a kid to be at school generally than not. The thing that most schools are pushing back against is what you've heard tonight, is we're measured on whether a kid was there or not, but not, the way we look at it is we should really be measured on, did we take the steps to respond? Did the teacher respond and try to make sure that the tier 1 things were there? For students that pass a certain threshold, are we offering tier 2, tier 3? We believe those would be stronger metrics for the state to be measuring us on, of the variables that are under our control rather than ones that aren't completely under our control. But I think that that's a nuance that comes with time as people look more and more at the data and the rationale and the reasons and those kinds of things. Right now, this is all still pretty new in the concepts of how we're looking at data as a state, and I would imagine that it would evolve over time.
I think it's really important that even if they are sick, because we are focused together on it, we're bringing them back to a sense of belonging so they don't feel overwhelmed and they don't want to, not want to come up to school again because I feel like I'm too far behind.
Yeah, right.
So really working on the intervention piece is vital.
Well, I think that, like Dr. Thiele had said, is it really makes a big difference when our teachers and staff work towards helping that student get back on track. And I think that says a lot about our district. And I think, I hate to say this, but I think we deserve points or whatever for that. Because it's not like our students are failing because of it.
Correct.
They're thriving. And that I don't want to make that an okay thing either, because that puts a lot of burden onto our staff. So this is just a huge dilemma.
Complex problem.
Yeah, it's not easy.
Do you have enough data yet that shows of those 3 tiers, like which bucket? I know it sounds like we're doing a lot, and that's great, and not like you don't help all 3 tiers, but is there enough data that says, like, if you can prevent tier 1 kids from getting into tier 2, you're likely to, or focus more? Because it's great we're doing all this, but it seems like a lot, and it's a lot on the people in those teams and the teachers. Do you have enough data that informs that?
It does when you're looking at individual students, because remember the reason why they hit that bucket is very dependent upon the individual. So if it's a student who has, I'm going to use more extreme cases in tier 3, right? You have a student who's hitting an early hospitalization, but not long enough to gain support, getting tutoring and homebound care. That's going to jump into a tier 3 pretty quickly, and we couldn't anticipate that at the tier 1 level. But early intervention, of course, is going to stop that tier 2 and tier 3, especially when we kind of embrace that student. If it's just a truancy student, we're embracing them and saying, no, we need you here. We absolutely want you to belong to.
Or even not just a truancy student, but that student who's kind of like, I don't really feel like going to school today. I kind of feel a little under the weather. Can you call me out? If we, like I talked about the peer connections, right? If they've got an incentive, if school is a place they want to be, if they know somebody's looking for them, they're more inclined to kind of be like, I don't feel, I'm a little tired. I worked late last night, but I'm going to go because I want to see Kelly, and, I know I've got a math test the next day. It'll be good for me to be there for the review, and she'll tutor me, so we're good, kind of thing.
Truly.
The other thing that, like Scott has set up our dashboards to look at is student involvement, because that's one of the key things we know. If a student's involved in at least one or hopefully two things at school, sometimes maybe they won't come out of bed because they have a math test, but they're going to come anyway because that activity they're involved in is after school, or that club is meeting, or there's a practice or whatever. So
Should have asked the cross-country team what their attendance rates were. Darn good.
I'm sure they were really good. So that's, working with our activity directors to, reach out to those students and bring them in and help them get involved is important.
I mean, truly, it's all, my dissertation was on belonging and connection. It came down to the fact that students need to feel a sense of belonging and that somebody really truly cares. And that's one reason why I love District 99, is because I couldn't find another district that puts more effort behind caring for their students. So much so I moved my family into District 99 just so they could experience that level of support and love from their teachers. And that's something that I'm hopeful for, because we're all embracing this together, I do think we'll see positive results from it.
This question by no means represents my personal feeling on this, but just let me play devil's advocate for a moment. So if you're telling me as a board that chronic absenteeism does not have an impact on academic performance.
No, it's not necessarily a predictor of academic performance.
Okay. That, to me, is the same thing, but okay. But, and it's not a drain on resources.
No, it can be a drain on resources.
Okay.
Right.
All right. Why do we care? And why should the board care about the level of absenteeism that we're experiencing? And talk to me a little bit about why it's important for kids to be in school.
Because our kids deserve the best, and they can't get the best if they're not in front of their teachers, who are literally dedicated to their instruction, dedicated to their future, and dedicated to preparing them for the future. Our kids deserve that. We should care because our kids deserve us to. They're our future. So absolutely, we should be very focused on this topic because our kids should maximize their potential in whatever the avenue they're going to go down.
Is there anything the board should be looking at from a policy standpoint to assist in this process? Are there negative reinforcements available at the board's policy decisions, meaning you're over 10%? Chronic absenteeism, you cannot participate in a social club.
That's the opposite of what we would want to do, right? Yeah, I hear what you're saying, yeah.
Yeah, I want to hear your recommendations. Is there something that the board should be doing from a policy standpoint to help you and assist you through this process? Or is this really just an administrative process?
No, I think you have and are continuing to support us every single day. Throughout COVID and then the aftermath of trying to recover from all of that, I don't think there's one policy I can point to say this isn't supporting us. You've always given us the resources we needed and the time to implement the change, to let us dig deep into the information to figure out what to do. I don't think there's one policy I can point to say, if we change this, that's going to be the magic formula. I think giving us that time to implement all these interventions and the people to do so, which you have, I would say maybe in the summer I could maybe better answer that question because we're putting all of these things in place right now. But I think that it makes an impact.
Yeah, what comes to mind for me is not necessarily a policy change, but maybe a shameless plug or plea. In talking with the deans about, in trying to identify students that are appropriate for our attendance, intervention mentoring groups that will be starting second semester. At South, we're prepared. We've got 6 different staff members. They're going to partner up, so we'll run 3 groups. And in talking with, we certainly can identify on paper who needs the program, but then there's the okay, but who's really going to benefit from this mentoring group, and how do we get them there, right? And so our deans were talking about providing incentives and rewards for attending the group so that we can hook them in through an incentive. So feeding them when they're there is, students always come around when there's pizza. But, maybe it's also with successful completion of the program, they would be eligible to win a raffle of, tickets to a dance or passes to Six Flags or something like that. Or maybe there are community businesses that would be willing to donate things that we could use to help incentivize the programming for students.
Well, I guess too, I like it something, but it's also complex because not everybody that we're hearing that, how they're marking people absent is, you want to go to a college visit or you had a doctor's appointment. So how do you, they should be college visits, you may have to go to the doctor. So how do you start to deal with that with the policy, right?
But I think you could target, I will say as a parent, to your point about there's so many details, I sometimes think there's almost too much detail. So when I go into Home Access Center, there's like 45 different ways you can be marked absent. Or like it's a lot, and I'm sure there is some reason, but I think for visibility, and I think we're eventually moving off that platform, but it's very difficult as a parent to have visibility. So the way that you could pop up and say, I literally have no idea how many days I have, and I've tried to sort of investigate that because I think I fall into the bucket of need some physical therapy. You might be going on a college tour, and so again, to your point, like if there are targeted ways of little things we can do to take the burden off the actual people effort. I know kids being hospitalized and that is a whole different thing and needs a different intervention, but there could be targeted ways to get this population.
Cleaner communication home, maybe.
Yeah, we could work for one subset of this group. Or, frankly, policy or sticks in some other way to some part of the group that might just be taking advantage of the flexibility we offer. Like, if those kids could truly be identified, could we target, I don't think at a policy level, but just to allow the people and the human effort that you talk about and all that to really focus on the kids where it's going to work. Just
Well, and we would certainly love, when we're making the shift in student intervention systems, to be able to more quickly identify exactly what you're talking about too. And sometimes when we're asked to report out how many days has the student been absent this school year, it's kind of cumbersome to do that in eSchool right now. So it would really be lovely if we could just look at the attendance screen and see.
Is there some data reason why you have to capture all that data? Like I assume, okay, I figured.
Different state
Yeah, all
codes.
the, okay, it's all the state codes, because there's a lot of state codes.
And then really quickly, another thing is the attendance office is kind of like, first off, it's hidden and a lot of people don't know it's there. And also a lot of teachers, like, I'm not gonna name my class or anything, but I've gotten marked absent because I was like in the bathroom or something, or and the teacher won't change it. And also just being able to have, and I think another thing that would really help with the accessibility of the attendance office is, for example, I have 7th period off and I have 5th period off, which means because of the block schedule, I'm out of school at 12:30, which is awesome because then I get to take that opportunity and go work. However, because the attendance office is and I completely understand, it's, especially as we were talking about, you guys are just completely slammed. However, my mom just ends up calling me out every Wednesday so I can go to work instead of trying to go through the process of getting the early release and all this stuff, especially with the 7th period, it's really hard. So I don't think I'm chronically absent, but I might be getting close just because I leave school on Wednesdays early and my mom needs to call me out. Or during my junior year, I was at college visits all the time because I was trying to get all the information. And I don't know, I don't think that it should, is there a way to change that where it's you're not penalized for going to a college visit?
Those are the same questions we're asking.
Gotcha. Because there have been times where it's there was a week at the College and Career Center where it's just every college I wanted to apply to was just there. So I was constantly there. My mom was like, why are you always at these visits? Your attendance is going to go down. And I thought it didn't count, so my bad. But
that's a good point. Does the teachers, it sounds like they do, but I would just ask this question, do they, has there been conversations with them? Because if you are, in the bathroom, does everybody know the importance of this? Because that, and is there a reason you can't change it if the person's I was in the bathroom?
Yeah, we've done a lot of professional development. And last year as well as this year, and they can go change it. They go back in and change it. Now, could a mistake happen? Sure. I mean, we all could make a mistake if we didn't catch it, but.
3 mistakes if you're my teacher.
It's true, though. I mean, I think parents don't understand either. I thought college visits were excused.
Yeah.
Well, they are excused absences. They are excused absences.
Yeah, you're right.
And then I thought excused absences didn't count, like,
Yeah,
into
of
this.
course.
Into this.
Most parents think that.
Yeah.
That's why a lot of times when we're reaching out and informing a parent that their children are chronically absent, a lot of the times we know the reason, and it might be a parent we've already worked with because of health issues or whatever, but parents sometimes get really upset that we're reaching out because they're like, but I've called them in, and it's like, we know, but you're actually passing the threshold in which we're required to reach out. So it does cause some angst and confusion.
I had that angst and confusion. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Do you have any
but
hope that the state will change, given all the things
It
that
is
are?
we have a new state superintendent who was a school superintendent, and Dr. Smith is definitely interested in looking at these things. And
Soon?
yeah, but I mean, it's nothing at the state level moves quickly. So there's definitely conversations beginning around many of these metrics, especially because, as the board is learning, they're kind of coming into fruition. We're actually seeing how the data is playing out and some of the assumptions underneath. Like when you see a plan that says, we're going to measure chronic absenteeism because the research shows previously in the past, students that are chronically absent have a higher failure rate. So yeah, it makes sense to put it on there. But then when you get into what counts and how the math works and those details, now it doesn't make as much sense as it did at the surface, at the macro level. So that's kind of the iteration that's playing on across the state.
Would you say they're giving more points to it now than, or was it not really a thing?
It wasn't.
It really wasn't a thing.
Before this
So this
came
is
out.
new
This is
across
new.
the board.
One of the nice things I think that, not necessarily nice things, but one of the things the state is doing is trying to get a handle on how many students are taking mental health days. And so now, unlike previously, we have to report that separately. It's a separate code. We have to report that. Because a lot of us have expressed concern that, there's legislation giving students and families the opportunity to take these mental health days, and yet it's negatively impacting our numbers. And so while that's a small step, I'm hopeful that over time, things may change.
Well, it's 5 days, right? I mean, it's a third of.
And not that every kid takes those, of course, but at least they're trying to get a handle on how many days students are taking for mental health.
What's the same thing we've transitioned to with illness? Like, if you're sick, stay home. If you need a mental health day, stay home, take care of yourself. Like, you have that message. At the same time, then we're calling that same family and like, you've been gone too much. And they're like, but you said stay home, right? So it causes a lot of mixed messaging that we're trying to get our arms around.
Quantitatively, as you measure potentially the impact of what you guys are doing from an intervention standpoint, how are you going to measure your success? Is it based on a drop in our chronic absenteeism? Do you have a goal in mind as to where you'd like to see us in the next 5 years? How are we going to know if what you're doing is successful?
At the macro level, the drop is probably one of the easiest things to point to, but for me, it's
And when we
more-
get all of the percentage points on that little schoolhouse, that's our goal.
I'm far less concerned about that grade than I am on the impact on the kids.
Right, that's what I
And
said.
that's kind of what my questions were kind of meant to
Yeah.
get to tonight.
So at the macro, it's the number. That's an easy thing to just point to, but that's not really telling the story of the student. And so when the deans pulled the students that met that 20%, and they start intervening proactively before they even have their first absence and making those connections, it's looking at stories like that and making sure that students who had struggled in the past, who may have had a really rough year, starts to improve and they feel that success and the sense of belonging. So while yes, it's, maybe sometimes it's easy just to look at a number, for us, that's not what we're about. We're looking at the individual students to make sure that they're successful and they're meeting their own individual goals.
And there are other quantitative metrics that tell a story more important, right? Our four-year graduation rates, our students who are involved in activities and athletics, our senior exit surveys that give us feedback about their personal experiences at Downers Grove South or North.
Do you know, does 58 have the same in the other feeder schools? Is this happening?
It's rising. It's rising at all grade levels throughout DuPage County, certainly, but truly globally.
We've always had a higher absence rate at the high school level because parents are comfortable letting their kids stay at home for the day. So high school rates of absenteeism are always higher than elementary schools. However, post-COVID, with the number of people that are working from home, elementary schools are seeing the numbers jump drastically, because before you would have to send your kid to school because that was who was watching your kids that day. But with the number of people that are working from home, there's a lot more elementary parents that are like, just stay home, you don't feel well, because they're at home with their kids, right? So that's part of the nationwide trend of increases.
So do you think about 85% you can sort of meet with tier 1? We're talking about a relatively small.
2, 2, 3.
Yeah.
And not everyone needs us at tier 1, right? Like, that 85%, we're probably not intervening at 85%. We're just encouraging positive attendance. We are, having those good dialogues, so making those connections. Our tier 2 and 3 are the ones that we're going to hyper focus on, unless we're seeing a trend in tier 1, climbing
into tier 2.
We're going to intervene quickly.
Question. Obviously, there was a paradigm shift with the virus and the way we live, work, and go to school today. What do you tell parents as to why their children need to be in school? Because as a parent, I could say, well, my child doesn't need to be there. They're getting the scores they need. They're getting the grades they need. Why do they need to be there? What are we saying? What is the true value of our D99 education, which they need to be in the buildings to experience?
So I have a two-pronged response to that. A student who is out of school might, for a short period of time, be able to continue to keep up, get good grades, that kind of thing. But that's, we are not an online school, and we are not intended to be, and it's not something that can be sustained over the long term. And the concern about a student exceeding the 10%, even less than that, right, is that once you've been out, it gets a little harder each time to go back. And the length of time that you've been out makes it harder to re-engage. And the other piece is, it's the high school experience, right? When we look back at what we remember about our own high school experiences, like they're talking about the camaraderie and their friendships and their activity, and they're not talking about the lab they did yesterday or that really cool clip they got to discuss in English class, and so it's the socialization. Teenagers need that, and their peers. As a parent of teens, their peers are more important to them sometimes than their family, and maintaining those connections. And truthfully, that's a really important life skill that they will need to be employable later. We are, that's an offshoot of the virus as well, right? Kids stopped talking to each other face to face, and they're reliant on social media and screens, and the ability for teenagers even to walk into a restaurant and order, and look face to face with someone, have sustained eye contact, and place an order for their own benefit, right? They don't know how to do it.
I mean, I taught U.S. history and economics before becoming a dean and then an associate principal. And of course, I thought that material was the best in the whole wide world. But truly, it was the conversations they had with one another and the growth that they could learn from each other. I can't replicate that at home.
Yeah, definitely.
I really can't. And so when they dialogue and be able to debate and have empathy for one another, and when somebody has a different opinion than I do, be respectful in that engagement and that conversation is what I can't show you in a book. Like, that has to be learned inside of school.
Thanks. I would agree, especially with the emphasis on cell phones. We need every opportunity we can find to help our students with their social skills.
I think, yeah, there's just so many post-COVID studies of what they're struggling with, you know, from not being in school, that
Yes, absolutely.
there's too much good stuff happening in these
There is.
places.
Agree.
I just had one final question. So we had 30% of our student body who was chronically absent last year. Of that number, is the majority of that 30% unexcused absenteeism, or is it a good portion of it truancy?
A good portion was, well, I'm guessing, actually,
I
if I
can pull it
answer
up.
that question. But remember, that includes until March of last year, that if you tested positive for COVID, you stayed out for 5 days. And so much of what we saw did include excused absences. I was working with the attendance data monitoring team last spring to try to identify the buckets of barriers that were interfering with attendance. And we looked at data and we talked to student focus groups, and we could not identify common buckets because it was really, very individualized and across the board.
So we haven't seen like a trend over the last couple of years that the excused absences has grown, and that's what's pushing our absenteeism rates?
I would say we have seen that.
We have seen that.
2021, we had 12% that were chronically truant, so that's, yeah. And then 2022 was 13, and last year was 15. So a slight increase in chronic truancy, but a drastic increase. In chronic absenteeism.
In excused absenteeism.
Yep.
Let us know if there's any messaging you want us to do at a board level, like at the beginning of a school year, a letter from the Board of Education to parents, as part of student registration, that this is really important.
I love that idea.
And we need to do this. Let us know if you think we need to positively reinforce kids who have perfect attendance. If there's anything that we can do to send out and reinforce this message to try and reverse that trend of growing excused absenteeism.
They'll give you a list of parents to call.
Thank you.
If there's anything we can do.
Thank you, yeah.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's very good work. Thank you. Good work. Thank you for staying.
Hard work.
All right, returning from last meeting, Gina provided an update of course proposals. These are action items tonight. The list of courses are up there. This is the last kind of chance to ask any questions before we move into it as an action item later this evening.
Any questions?
Nope. I think they
Sorry,
look
Gina, no
exciting. I'd like to take some of them.
Yes. All right, moving on to DRE, the 2023 tax levy request. We heard the board feedback last meeting, and DRE responded to that, so I'll let her cover the changes.
Okay. Excuse me. I hope my voice will carry tonight. I was sick last week. So last month, we presented an estimated tax levy for your review and our discussion. And since that November board meeting, we've received some additional information from some of the township assessors. So using that additional information,
and taking into account the feedback that we received from the board, we've revised the original estimated figures for the tax levy to the ones that we're looking at this evening. So last month, the overall increase was a little over 5%. Tonight, we're looking at one that's 8.8% in total. Last year at this time, what we presented to the board for the proposed 22 tax levy was about an 8% increase. So just a little higher than last year. But given the unknowns, we've put together a little higher estimate just to protect the district.
And a reminder to the board, this will all get adjusted with the real numbers. Remember, this is just a guess.
Yeah.
And anybody whose property hasn't been reassessed or changed in some way will be capped at 5%. What we're really trying to capture here is any of the reassessments, new construction, new businesses, those kinds of things in that number.
I got my letter today.
Same.
Yeah.
I think I did too.
It was, so once the county
Very
has
poetic.
all that information, then they review it, they process it, and then in the spring, we'll bring back the actual tax extension, because they'll do the computation on it.
Lucky dog.
And ultimately, excuse me, it has to stay within the tax caps.
So that's going to be enough. Will that be enough?
We feel so.
Okay. All right. That's all
We're
that matters.
seeing most of our peers in DuPage County are somewhere between 8 and 10 right now, just to be sure that they capture everything when the actual true numbers come out. All right, this is up for public hearing in a moment and then action later on this evening. All right. Freedom of information requests, we have received them, we fill them, they're listed up on our website. All right, this would be an opportunity for a public hearing for truth and taxation. Do we have anybody that wishes to address the board regarding the levy? The levy only at this point.
Well, do you want me to open the
You
hearing?
you need to open it,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah, sorry, Don.
That's
Yes, you
okay.
have an official thing to read.
Yeah, so do I need a roll call to open the hearing?
No, you just open it.
So I can, on
Yes,
my
sir.
own? Okay. So I'd like to open the public hearing on truth and taxation. I'm going to have Dr. Thiele repeat exactly what he just said.
If anybody would like to address the board, this is your opportunity.
Hearing none, may I have a motion to close the hearing on the 2023 tax levy and truth and taxation?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Terry moved, Sherrill second.
Cheryl will second. Thank you very much. Terry Pavasich.
Aye.
Cheryl Fuller.
Aye.
Jenny Hagstrom.
Aye.
Kara Caston.
Aye.
Ken Dawson.
Aye.
Chris Espinoza.
Aye.
And Don Renner.
Aye, motion carries. Public hearing is closed. Okay, item 8, the consent agenda. Can I get a motion for the Board of Education to approve the consent agenda as presented, which includes A, personnel report, appointments classified, transfer of position classified, B, personnel report, resignations certified, resignations classified, C, November financial pages, D, student tour, E, revised administrative regulations 5.271, AR2, AR3, and AR4, F, acceptance of donation from the McNaughton Development LLC, and G, acceptance of donation from the Knights of Columbus Council number 16062.
So moved.
Second.
Terry moved, Chris seconds.
Thank you. Terry Pavasich.
Aye.
Chris Espinoza.
Aye.
Cheryl Fuller.
Aye.
Jenny Hagstrom.
Aye.
Kara Caston. Aye. Ken Dawson.
Aye.
And Don Renner.
Aye, motion carries. Item
I'd like to highlight, though, our two donations. The McNaughton Development Company helped to offset the unexpected costs of sending a state football team to state championships. So that was very nice of them. They provided a $5,000 donation to offset some of the transportation and the team dinner and a variety of different things. And that just came out of the blue. They called and said, we anticipate that you're going to have some increased costs. How can we help? So that was wonderful.
That's great.
And then the Knights of Columbus are providing a donation to help out. at T99.
So, very good. Thank you.
Item 9, recommendations for action. Can I get a motion for the Board of Education to approve the 2024-25 course proposals as presented?
So moved.
Chris moves.
Second.
Ken seconds.
Thank you very much. Christopher Espinoza.
Aye.
Ken Dawson.
Aye.
Sherelle Fuller.
Aye.
Jenny Hagstrom.
Aye.
Terry Pavasich.
Aye.
Craig Caston. Aye. And Don Renner.
Aye, motion carries. Now, can I have a motion for the Board of Education to approve the 2023 tax levy for $111,890,519, the certificate of tax levy, the certification of certificate of tax levy, and the certificate of compliance with the truth in taxation law as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Terry moves, Ken seconds.
Thank you. Terry Pavasich.
Aye.
Ken Dawson.
Aye.
Christopher Espinoza.
Aye.
Sherelle Fuller.
Aye.
Jenny Hagstrom.
Aye.
Kara Caston. Aye. And Don Renner.
Aye, motion carries.
Thank you.
Any old business, Hank?
No.
Or any new business?
No.
Julie, do we have any receptions of visitors?
Sir, we do have one.
We have one person that would like to address the board. You want to provide the...
Yes. So this is the second reception of visitors, which is intended for audience members to address the board on any topic pertaining to Community High School District 99. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes to provide all visitors an equal opportunity to address the board. Individuals needing more time should submit their thoughts in writing to the board's secretary. Visitors addressing the board need to submit a comment slip to the board secretary and will be invited to the microphone. Prior to addressing the board, audience members should state their full name. The proceedings may be tape recorded for the purpose of producing accurate meeting minutes. The board's presiding officer reserves the right to modify these protocols if circumstances warrant. Audience observation of these protocols is appreciated. Thank you.
We have one presenter, Amanda Conder.
Yes. I am here tonight to bring attention to my son, Harrison Conder, his story. He was born deaf in 2006. He received 2 surgeries, but he still had permanent damage. He started wearing hearing aids and attended a deaf and hard of hearing school from the age he was 3 to 5. He learned how to speak, sign, and read and advocate for himself at that young age. He started wrestling at age 5, which boosted his self-confidence and made him feel like all the other hearing kids. Harrison learned how to read lips at a very young age because he could not understand and communicate with his coaches while he was on the mat. Fast forward to his time at Downers Grove North High School, where he attended his freshman, sophomore, and junior year. He participated in wrestling for those 3 years under Coach Chris McGrath, representing Downers Grove North, and he's a 3-time state placer at North. Early in his junior year, he started to struggle at Downers Grove North, as documented by his Downers Grove North counselor. I do have letters for everybody if you're interested in seeing it. As a family, we decided to find an alternative solution for him. A small private school was key. Fewer students, less noise, and more personal attention for him. And of course, we would want him to wrestle. All the academic and healthcare professionals in Harrison's life wrote endorsing letters on how a transfer to a small school would be best for him as a hard of hearing child. Downers Grove North protested this transfer, as well as the IHSA, and they deemed him ineligible to wrestle his senior year. Since Harrison has transferred to his new school, he has earned straight A's his first quarter, except for math class. The smaller school setting and the attention he gets is what he needs. All of his IEP recommendations transferred with him. The only thing he did not get the chance to do so far this year is represent his new school as an athlete. We gave IHSA a letter from Downers Grove North at our hearing a few days ago for Harrison's academic counselor. Again, his academic counselor from Downers Grove North endorsed a smaller school for him, said it would be the best possible place for him since he was struggling where he was. The Downers Grove North principal and AD Kavanaugh did not support their own counselor. They told the IHSA they did not support her recommendation of this. Again, the IHSA deemed him ineligible. Again, we moved Harrison for academic reasons. He just happens to be a really, really good wrestler. He should not be penalized for doing something that he loves. I would like Downers Grove North to reconsider and approve this transfer. He should be able to wrestle. We will be on Channel 9 News tonight at 9. It already ran at 6. It's a great story. It was done today. Thank you for your time, and thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I pass around letters?
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I just have a few copies. My printer ran out of ink. Thank you.
I will remind the board that the Illinois High School Association, IHSA, governs the eligibility of student athletes through its own process and makes all of the decisions regarding eligibility.
Thank you.
The district supports all students and respects a family's decision to send their student to a school that best suits their educational needs. When families request to transfer their student out of our school, we complete all of the required paperwork in a timely and accurate manner. The process of determining eligibility is entirely at the discretion of IHSA.
Moving on to communications and announcements. Jenny, do you have any report on Lent?
No, nothing until January.
Okay. Hank or Sherelle on Sasson?
We have a busy week this week.
Yeah, I'm on Wednesday.
Yeah, Sherelle will be at a governing board on Wednesday, where they will be asked to approve our recommendation for the next executive director. So it's been a really good process. We had some really good finalists, and we're excited about who's being recommended to the governing board.
Good.
I think I didn't see a location, so we'll.
You'll be at SASD, yeah, at the SASD office. If you need help, let me know. They're on Ogden.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't have the time either, but okay.
Terry?
I'll re-forward
I'm sorry.
the message.
Thank you.
Terry, report on the Education Foundation?
We're meeting Wednesday, so I have nothing to report.
Okay. Ken, any report on IASB?
Nothing this year. Looking forward to next year.
Okay. Item number 14, upcoming board meetings. The next board meeting will be January 22nd, 2024, which will be a regular business meeting at 6:30 PM here at the ASC. For the benefit of audience members, the board will now be moving into closed session. The board will be coming out of closed session with one item, an action item, for those who want to stay. Otherwise, please feel free to go. So at this point in time, I need a motion from the Board of Education to go into closed session for the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees, specific individuals who serve as independent contractors in a park, recreational, or educational setting, or specific volunteers of the district or legal counsel for the district, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee, a specific individual who serves as an independent contractor in a park, recreational, or educational setting, or a volunteer of the district or against legal counsel for the district to determine its validity.
So moved.
Second.
Terry moves, Chris seconds.
Thank you. Terry Pavasich.
Aye.
Chris Espinoza.
Aye.
Cheryl Fuller.
Aye.
Jenny Hagstrom.
Aye.
Kara Caston.
Aye.
Ken Dawson.
Aye.
And Don Renner.
Aye, motion carries. We're now moving into closed session.
Before that, I just want to say thank you to both North and South for the fabulous music concerts, the Mosaic and the holiday concerts. I was at both of them, and they were very moving, and our students and staff worked really hard on those, and they did a fabulous job. I just want to say thank you, and if you could pass on to the staff that it was just magnificent. And it is every year, but it's always a special occasion. So thank you, thank you.
Thanks, Terry.
All right, after a short break, we'll adjourn into closed session in here.